All right, so our presentation this evening is going to be on color and design in the garden. And we're going to go back and forth between the two of us. Juanita's background is in art and design, and mine is in specifically landscape design. And so we thought combining the two is going to give you kind of a broad view of what we do, but help you figure out how to design and use color in your own gardens as well. So this is me. I started out gardening in 4-H with herb gardening, and I loved it. And so I continued on to the U of I, and I got a degree in horticulture back when it was still called horticulture. And I worked at Greenview once I graduated, and I was a landscape designer there. And then for the past 15, 17 years, I've been able to design from home, which has been really fun, and I've been able to raise my girls at home, and it's just been a blessing all the way around to continue to do what I love to do and share it with others. And now I'm a master gardener, and I love being a master gardener. So my portion of it is going to be specifically about landscape design, and I want you to know that I spent years in school learning how to do this, and so our 20-minute presentation tonight for my portion of it is just a small part of what it takes. So don't think you're going to walk out being able to draw things really quickly, but at least you'll have an idea of where to start. So the first thing that I want to discuss is, why is landscaping necessary? I think we can all agree that landscaping makes a home more beautiful. It makes the home feel established and more welcoming. Actually, I use landscaping a lot to make maintenance easier around the house. There's an area that's hard to mow, we'll just fill it up with plants. There's an area that needs to be screened. If your neighbors are a problem, all of those issues can be fixed with landscaping. Obviously, landscaping attracts wildlife. Sometimes that's beneficial and sometimes that's unwanted, but either way, something that happens. I grow a lot of food for my family, and that's a new trend, is edible design. So actually, a lot of the things that I do for people in town will include vegetables and fruit within their landscape beds because they don't have anywhere else to put it. Entertainment space, screening of the neighbors, and energy conservation. Shade trees, blocking the wind. So I've just got a few quick examples here of landscaping. This one is for curb appeal. The front of this house looks really pretty, someplace you want to go and visit, someplace that's interesting to get to the front door. This place, same thing, it's curb appeal, but it's a very different style. It's very kind of sparse and very clean, very low maintenance, and this was reflected in what these homeowners wanted and desired for their yard. We got a before and after. This is an office building, before and after. Much cozier looking, again, very welcoming by the front door. Entertainment space in the backyard. People are spending more and more time outdoors, and you need spaces to do the things that you want to do. You're much more likely to go outside and enjoy it if you've got a beautiful space to be in. Grilling areas, outdoor entertainment, cooking outside. I do a lot of outdoor kitchens. So the first thing when you decide to do a landscape design, you need to do is take a site inventory. So the inventory consists of two things, what you already have and your existing conditions. And so putting those together, you can analyze what you have and compare and contrast what you want and what you want to accomplish. So you look at things that are already there that you can't do anything about. Sidewalks and patios, existing trees, the neighbors on either side, where the utilities are, where your windows and doors are. You need to know your views from inside the house out, so you have something beautiful to look at, and also where your pathways are going to be for getting to and from places. Existing conditions could be whether you're in the sun or the shade. It's going to make a difference in the plants that you choose. If you have dry soil, again, the views from the house, and elevation changes. Some new subdivisions, especially in Monticello, there's nothing flat over there by the river. So elevation changes can be challenging, but they can also make a backyard really beautiful. So again, you kind of just take inventory of what you have. This is going to be, for tonight, our really, really basic house. So you can see the driveway, you can see the garage, the front door with windows on either side. In new subdivisions, they've just got a basic sidewalk walking up to the front. There's already a tree that's been planted by the builder, and then this little box right here is going to be our mailbox. So for tonight, this is the really basic house we're going to use to show a landscape design. This is the site inventory that I did for this area. We'll start on that side. They've got neighbors really, really close. And so on that side of the house, they want to screen their neighbors so they're not looking from window to window. You can see on the front door, they've got these big, beautiful windows looking from the inside out. They need something to look at. That's their view. We're going to put some plants up by the house to make the mowing easier. The tree down here in the corner is pretty close to the property line, so it would be easier if we didn't have to mow around it. Same thing with the mailbox. Just not enough space to get the mower all around. These fictional people have kids, and so they're going to put a basketball hoop here, but it's really windy, so that's an issue for them. And then they've decided to put their garbage on the side of the house, and so it needs to be hidden. So in my inventory, those are all the issues and needs that they have that we're going to fulfill with this landscape design. So now that we know what we need to do, we're going to talk a little bit about design. There are some things that are universal in design, no matter if we're talking about landscape plants or painting a picture. The things that people generally recognize across the board that make a design good or attractive. The things that I'm going to talk about tonight are symmetry, balance, repetition, proportion, and scale. And I have some landscape pictures of these to kind of demonstrate what these principles are. Symmetry and balance is basically making both sides feel similar in weight. They don't have to match, but if you have a tree on one side, you should have a tree on the other side. If you've got color on one side, you should have the same color on the other side. It just makes it feel balanced. Same thing here. You can see the trees. You can see it's a very symmetrical building. We've got a really basic landscape there, but it works. Repetition is the same elements all lined up in a row. So it could be plant material. In this case, they've used the arborvitaes as a screen. It can also just be, still plant material, but in this case, the repetition of the trees especially, and the grasses along the front, they help actually move you through the landscape or direct you to an area, whether it's someplace to walk to or maybe it's just a view. Maybe make your eye move along. In this case, the repetition of the bricks. You feel like moving down the sidewalk, and then when you get to the round part, you feel like stopping. It's an area that your eyes pause. It's an area that you're probably going to pause in while you're walking. Something to do there. This repetition, even though it's not as obvious, we've got this line of evergreens here, and then we've got the Russian sage. Again, it helps move you across the sidewalk in front of the house. And then there's an obvious stopping point with the arbor. Proportion can be weird, but when you look at this, like I had my daughter look at this, and she said, there's just something off about that picture. And I said, you're right. The problem here is that while these tall arborvitae are in proportion to the house, there's a big jump down to what is on the ground level. There's nothing in between. And when you look at that, you just say, it feels like something's missing. Scale is a little bit different than proportion. In this case, scale is related to the human body. So while these arborvitae are proportional to the house, that works fine. Putting them on either side of your front door makes you really feel small and insignificant as you're walking up to the porch. So again, it's just a picture of something's wrong here. You don't know why. Okay, so we're going to jump to Juanita now, and she's going to talk about some different principles of color and design, and then we're going to tie it all together as we do the actual landscaping.
It's kind of like Art History 101 and Art Appreciation in a nutshell. And my nutshell is color. And I came today as a walking billboard for color, complementary color, red, blue, opposite each other on the color wheel. You'd never see me in beige. I have a sister, she's a beige person. And I'm trying to get her out of that little mode. but I'm always very colorful. But it just makes you feel good, and when you use color in your garden, it makes you feel good also. And there's so many different ways you can use color. And I've got some really interesting ways to show you. But first, just a little brief. This almost speaks for itself. I have a BFA, MFA, and almost a PhD. And I minored in journalism. I love to write. I write for the newspaper. And I've been an art professor for years, specializing in graphic design, painting, and now computer graphics. And I write for the correspondent for the County Star. And I love to be a master gardener. I have made more friends and it's just been a joy for my life to help share some things with y'all. And art show judge, and it goes on, but that's enough. That's a little intro. So I would rather get into, we're going to talk a little bit about the line, color, basically color. That is really my thing. But I wanted to talk about line just briefly because a definition of line is a path of a point moving in space. And I was talking to Carlos earlier. He said, I can't draw. I said, okay, you put your pencil down, you make a mark, you move your pen, it's a line. So you have drawn. And no one else in the world is going to draw that line exactly like you. It's personal. So everybody can be creative. So get your pencils out and coloring. That's a big trend right now, coloring books. So you are an artist. And now solid lines lead your eye in a certain direction, like that big arrow. And when you have your garden made up of color, solid group of plants, what do? You look at them. They have a sense of movement. They direct your eye down a path. And this path happens to be from one of my paintings. I didn't bring it because it's big and heavy. But look at the path. Look at the color. There are green beltways. There are areas they left just the soil. So there is a nice contrast of value. And then they have these real shots of wonderful color. This is an acrylic painting that I did from the Missouri Botanical Garden. And they sold prints there for me. But this happens to be my sister, the beige one. The beige one. And you can choose to wear beige, right? Yeah. But I use her as a model because I don't have to pay her. And other paintings I have, the people have their back turned. You don't have to pay them, and you don't have to get a release sign. So if you take photographs, just remember that. But I thought this is a good example of the use of path of line, what you can do with almost negative space and then punctuate it with these wonderful groups of color. And these happen to be just big groups of roses, which I love. And this is the impact of a line of white plants. Look what it does. Zoom. It leads your eye right down, and that stretch of green is a really calm area that balances the busyness of all those plants. And then you can walk up and look at the texture and the different various little details. But that is very powerful. A line, to me, is one of the most powerful elements you can use in your design, besides color. And value, of course, is the difference between light and dark, white on one end and black on the other. And when I was an undergraduate, we had to make these value scales. Boring. But you really learned that there are so many steps, at least 10 steps to every color that you could actually do, of course, on pigment or with pencil on paper. And there's so many colors and values of plants if you kind of tune your eye to listen and look for those. There really is 50 Shades of Gray. There is many more shades of gray. And these color fans, they're wonderful to work with. Go to your big box store, gather up a fistful of their color chips for paint. And you don't have to pay for them. I mean, just don't gather up all of them at one time. But look what you can do to them. With them. You can line them up. You can see values, difference of values that you want to use. And the color is wonderful. And I've always been a colorful person. Red hair, red clothes. And my mother said, as a child, I drove her crazy coloring on my shoes, a new pair of white shoes, the refrigerator, the walls. But it's kind of intuitive sense ingrained. I think I was born with it. I think we all have that intuitive sense of color, though. When I look around, I see red vest. I like that red vest. Your eye goes to that, doesn't it? It's bright. It's contrasted with gray. So gray works is kind of like a harmonizer with a lot of your bright colors. And of course, we have harmonious colors, monochromatic, analogous, and my favorite, complementary. Monochromatic and analogous, you probably know what monochromatic is. My sister is beige. She's monochromatic. So we've got that established right away. But monochromatic uses any tint, value, or shade of one color. And you can go to a nursery, look around, you find monochromatic plants really easily, and they always go well together. And cool colors then are calm, receding colors. Warm colors are eye-catching. They advance out at you. And analogous colors are the ones that are next to each other on the color wheel. I have this great giant umbrella that is like a color wheel, and it is a perfect color wheel. And when I look at that, it makes me feel good, but also I can pick and choose colors because you can really see what is opposite to each other. And then you can see the colors like 2 or 3 that are analogous. They always work without fail. You can always go to them. And these are more color chips, borrowed from the big box stores. These are your green colors. Look, these are just a small sampling of the greens that are available. And they start out with bright, they merge into shades in tints, and the shade in pigment, you just add black, and tint, you add white. But in plants, we don't do that. Visually, the propagators do that for us, and we have the fun of picking those out. But you can, if you love the greens, look in your garden and kind of assess, like Jesse was talking about, take a site inventory, take a color site inventory, and just decide, do I need more greenery? And then that will really enhance the plants I have around it. And green is a wonderful color to use. And I showed this slide because these are echoes of the color palette of tints and shades of green. Wonderful. And look at all the difference of textures and variety. It's just a feast for your eyes. And as an artist, I love greenery. The paintings, I'm drawn to green stuff, and then I surround it with plants of color, of course. Here's another one, tints and shades of green. And then you have little shots of gray, which really pull things all together. And these are tints of pink. And pink comes from red. It's just a little backed off a little bit farther. But if you use these color chips and then take those to a nursery with you, you can find plants from almost all of those color chips. Set them up together and look at them as a group, and they're going to work well. And plants of one hue and the secondary color, purple, red, look how they flow like a stream. They grab your eye because of the color harmony, but also the line in which they are grouped together. And I brought a few of my watercolors in. This is one I've done. But it's a primary color, tints and shades of red. And I happen to love roses, but the tint projects a very calm, pleasant feeling, but then contrasted against the green, that makes it a little bit more active. And warm colors are cheerful, welcoming, and very active. And those of you that like warm colors in your garden, you know what I'm talking about. You walk out, you feel good, you want to sit a little bit, but maybe walk more than just sit, because warm colors are a little agitating. Cool colors are a little calmer. Pastel colors are a little calmer. And look what one bright accent of a warm color will do. That perfect line of trees over the bridge and through the woods to Grandma's house. But it is perfect. It leads your eye down, and then, of course, the lines of the bridge also just draw you into that scene. And tints of yellow and gold. Another a very valid primary. Your red, blue, and yellow are your three major primaries. And, of course, they have all these hundreds of tints from those. Here is a close-up look of one plant, but look at the subtle colors in that plant. This is another of my paintings, watercolor. And I love doing it because it is so much fun to try to recreate colors that you find in nature, but it's so inspiring for your own garden. And you can find dozens of colors. And then in the right-hand corner, look at that dark. It's kind of a dark purple, contrast from yellow. So it really makes those colors pop out. Here's another one with the gold. Beautiful. I mean, it's watercolor's mine. I think it's beautiful. But the plant itself is beautiful. Not only the foliage, but the graceful, the petals of it. But look how the contrast of stamens against the background and the many, many shades that you can find in one plant. And I love foliage. There's, no doubt about it. I'm a foliage person. And yes, I love boxwoods, love green and foliage. But this is a good example of the texture of tints and shades of your greens and yellow greens. They make a whole harmonious scene. The color wheel, I had to stick one of those in here. Artists, we use color wheels. I mean, we used to, but I kind of got away from it a little bit. But look how this color pattern was based on the color wheel. Dark, light, in a circle. Imagine if you were redoing your yard and you want to be a little bit more interesting, you could do some circular designs with your cool colors in the center, because they're going to recede. Warm colors in the outside, because they're going to advance. And then in the circle, because it's a line that happens to be joined together, so it's very active. So you've got a really terrific design going. And the power colors are the primaries. They really reach out and zap you. The red, yellow, and blue. They draw your eye to them, just like, I'm flashing you with a red jacket right now. And the circular pattern featuring a minimum of monochromatic colors can be very interesting. And if you look down on this, the colors almost merge into the background, but if you get up close, they're very different in their shade and then in the textures also. But their monochromatic can be interesting. Intricate patterns of shrubs and topiaries can complement the circles of color. Look at the greeneries and then pops of color in the center. I love that. Really powerful use of color. Yeah, right. And then complementary colors, of course, are across from each other. They can wave at each other and say, hi, we're going to get together. But your eye never does because, it's so active. It doesn't know where to stop. It bounces back and forth. And They've just got a strong visual impact. Quiet colors, that the intensity has been grayed down by the use of a common color, usually white. Now, that's in pigment, but in plants, you can find the grayed down plants that will really work well with your color scheme. And here is a sample of red and green. Well, where was this taken, Jessica?
Champaign Country Club.
Oh, Champaign Country Club. Really good use of red and green. And notice there is a strip of green, kind of like a ribbon in front, a line, and then the sidewalk becomes part of that whole scheme, doesn't it? So the whole thing has been thoughtfully planned out. Purple and yellow are beautiful. Look at the complementary colors, but yet they're not the most intense of that color. They're grayed down a little bit, soft, very calm. And then the textures, here again we have purple, green, complements from each other, again across from the color wheel. And I love this scene so much. This is a drawing I did, color pencil. It's from Allerton Garden a couple years ago. We were out there at the conference, and I always have my camera with me. And the flow of the purple, and it's just a wonderful stage. And it's not boring, very active. You have ribbons of plants kind of crisscrossing each other. And then it's punctuated with some garden statuary, which also adds a little spice to that scene. And the colors with, I call the real pal colors. The full intensity, no tints, no shades, yellow blues. And some of you are not fans of boxwoods, I hear. I can't understand why. I love boxwoods. Yeah. Look, you could create little shapes with them. You could let them grow naturally. You can trim them up, and they're like little limb sculptures. But this shows the good use of light green against yellow, complementary colors. So that makes your boxwood a lot more interesting. And I love this, the purple, and then the grasses, but purple, yellow, green, opposite each other, always works. And here is the power of intense values, bright yellow. This is another watercolor of mine that I did. And it's just like a clash. You can almost hear it come together. The greens, the yellows, very active. Pink and purple, very powerful colors. I love purple. I love pink. I don't wear it with my color, but I like to see it on other people. But the colors are very active. And you can see this, pink, purples, some of the very light greens working very well together. And I love the tiered effect in this one. They come up from the soft, lighter values, darker, and then, boom, this little pop of color at the top. Mixed colors work really well. Your purples with your oranges, and look down here, the soft greens. It depends on the intensity of the value, how well your colors work together. I love coleus also. I think it's a wonderful plant. And they have so many colors together. Look how they blend, the way they kind of spill down, but they really seem like they belong together, don't they? And this is, I think this is one that Jessica took, the municipal building. If you haven't been to the municipal building in Savoy, they do a really good job with their coloring and with their design. And originally, Rita and I in the Savoy Garden Club helped plant that circle of plants where the memorial is. And roses and, let's see, boxwoods. Got to get the boxwoods in. Yeah, and they have grasses now and things. But it's very calm, very restful, and it makes you want to linger a little bit longer then. And look at the line, how your eye reads the scene. And it starts with a curve, doesn't it? You can't miss that bright white. It comes out at you. But right behind it is that ribbon of green that just draws you in. And then the beautiful foliage, complementary colors. And they're not just one line of one color, are they? We have a grouping of the lighter green, and then we have the grouping of that kind of beautiful purple rose color, and then a little pop of the lighter green. So that's good design. You don't want to have, to me, I don't like to see just one little line like the tulips along the sidewalk. I'm sure none of you have done that. I hear a few laughs. But, we all love our gardens no matter what. So I'm just saying, be creative. Go outside the frame. It's your yard, your garden. You can do anything in the world you want to, because if it doesn't work, you can do it over again. And Jessica and I were talking about where you get your inspiration. As an artist, I travel a lot. We do a lot of trips, and Rita and I, as good friends, and my baby sister travel a lot. And but I take a lot of photographs, and then I do paintings based on those later, not to copy them, but to get kind of the feeling that you saw the first time you saw that, to get back in that mood. And so this is a watercolor I did that is for around the scene I saw around Sydney. But how you say, what you show me that, how that does with my garden? Okay, think about this for a moment. Think about the color. Think about the grays. Think about the spot of yellow in the center of that. Gray and yellow work really well together. And then down lower, you have a little touch of blue. So no matter where you are, what you look at, you can think of something that you can use in your garden color-wise. And the same thing with this. I took that, I think when I was out west, I took that quite a while ago. But when I saw the colors, I thought, I love that. And these are all watercolors I did later. But the yellows, the grays, the mauve, and the little pop of orange right down in the center below, I could just envision a beautiful garden with those colors. Same thing with this. Look at the yellow is very dominant in this, but yet you have complementary blue-grays. And then down below, you have umbers and some other very calm colors coming in. That would work beautifully in a garden. I like yellow. And the same thing of that, the color scheme, you never know when you're going to be inspired by color that you can use. And here we're back to our site inventory again. And I think that shows that if you're really serious about putting landscaping and color in your garden, the tips that Jessica showed you and it can really help. And, use this as resources. This is what we're master gardeners. We don't mind sharing with you what we have learned. And, of course, we learn from you all, too, together. Any final tips, Jessica?
Well, yeah, we're going to walk through creating a small landscape.
I think I turned that on.
Yeah. We'll go back. We'll go back to the site inventory.
That's good.
So, hopefully, at this point, you've been inspired and maybe thinking about the colors that you want to use in your yard. But it's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to create a garden that's all yellow and blue, because those are my favorites, and we know they work well together. But how do you create a garden? Get a variety of plants, that's what we're going to talk about next. So we'll go back to our site inventory. This is our sample house, and these are the problems that we need to fix. So the first thing that I do when I work on a design is I take the base plan of the house. That's what this is called. It's a view from above. And I think about the bed lines. And bed lines can go in a lot of different shapes and sizes. And some of it depends on what the client wants when I'm talking to them, so what you would want to see at your house. But this is just a sample of really minimum bed lines that can accomplish all the things that we want. So you can see over at the edge, we can screen the neighbors with a larger bed there. We can make it easy to mow with things up by the house. We can put things down here by the road that you can see from the windows that view out. We've taken care of mowing around the mailbox and around the tree. I put an evergreen tree over here to help with the wind, and some grasses there to help with screening the garbage cans. So that's one idea. But here's another idea. Maybe they want to spend a little bit more time in their yard. We do a little bit larger bed lines. We've got a couple trees over here. We've got this flowing bed line that goes around and through the sidewalk. It's more interesting. You're walking through the landscape. We've gone ahead and put a bed line all across the front so they can have a lot of plants and give you screening from the house too, but now you really have something to look at out those windows. Or maybe maybe it's an engineer that lives here, like my husband. You line everything up in a straight row. So, if I had someone like that, I would say, okay, we can do lines, but let's make them a little more interesting. So again, we've taken care of all of the problems, but with straight lines instead. And you can see how the lines flow across the driveway here, both ways. It makes the design more cohesive on both sides of the sidewalk. Gives you a little bit of balance too, but it's just another way to solve the landscape problems. So, maybe I would pick one of those depending on how much time you want to spend outside and what the final kind of feel is that you want for the landscape. For today, I'm going to choose these bed lines. This gives us enough space to get a lot of variety, and also, but it's not too much. This would be kind of a standard home. So we're going to start with these. The first thing that I do, I don't pick out any plants. Through the whole landscape design until the very end, I just have in mind the principles of design that we talked about, balance and repetition and symmetry. And I figure out the base plan that's going to fulfill all of those. We know our design is going to be solid even before we pick out the plants. So it looks like a line of shrubs. It's just a straight line, but you can see there are size differences, so we'll have some variety up there. In a standard landscape, there's not a lot of space to do, like on the west border of the idea garden, you've got 10 feet to work with there, so you can do a lot of layering of shrubs. In a basic landscape plan, you're not going to have that many layers. So I draw all my circles that are going to be the trees and the shrubs, and I leave space for the little filler fluffy things. So these are going to be the shrubs. I'm going to add in more little circles in groupings. You can see here, this grouping of 3 would be one kind of plant. This would be a single plant. Here's a grouping of 3 shrubs. This is probably going to be all the same thing. Same thing over there. You can see on that little curve, I'm going to do grouping of 5 of the same thing. In general, we kind of try to group in groupings of 1 or 3. For some reason, it just feels a little more, the oddness of it makes it feel a little more natural. But I'm not that specific. You can see some of the places I have 2, because 2 would fit, and I'm really okay with that. For me, it's not something that I stick with. So once we have all of our big and little circles drawn in, I also added rocks. I think that rocks, boulders, and bird baths, and things like that are really great to add in the landscape because they're easy to take care of. They're there in the wintertime. And they can really add another layer of texture and color that you can't get with plants. So I've included some boulders too. So I got all my circles. Now it's time to start thinking about the plants. And again, I'm not going to think about particular kinds yet, or particular names of plants, but I am going to think about the kinds. So the first season I think about is winter. What are we going to put here that's evergreen, that's going to be visible when the snow is on the ground? And for my winter interest, I include grasses as well because I like to leave those up through the winter time as something to look at. So I tried to kind of balance it out here. You're going to have something in all areas of the yard that's going to be visible in the winter time. Probably going to put maybe some arborvitae over here on the far side to kind of take care of that neighborhood screening. I balanced it out. See, the the balance on both sides of the sidewalk. They don't match. There's two on that side and one on this side, but maybe this one is a little wider, and so the weight is similar. This is going to be something all by itself over here, but I've got grasses, again, balanced. Maybe these are a little bit taller, and the three are a little bit smaller. They don't have to match, but again, you have a similar weight. Next, with my favorite part, are the flowers. But you need to be careful. These aren't all, this is not a pink and purple color. But I just wanted to see how, when you're thinking about things, you need to think about all the seasons. So obviously spring can be from March until May, so there's a lot of flexibility in there. But I try to decide what's going to be spring blooming, what's going to be summer blooming, how we have some of it represented in all parts of the landscape, so that there's always something interesting going on there. And again, I don't yet know what these plants are. I just have an idea for how to make it balanced and interesting. You can see too the balance on the sidewalk on both sides here, how the two that are up by the door are going to match. I don't know what they are yet. It doesn't matter yet at this point. But I've tried to fulfill all of those different things, the repetition of the spring flowers all the way across, and all of our different design elements. So the next thing that I would do to make it more interesting and to also make the groupings much more obvious are to go ahead and give some plant detail. And these can be anything that you want, and you could even just use a colored pencil and color them the same colors if you want. But it gives you a much better idea of the texture of the plant and then also how the groupings are laid out. So, this is going to be some kind of evergreen. This is something soft and full, maybe coral bells. These are going to be grasses. Maybe these are daylilies. We've got big trees here. Again, by the mailbox, we've got something small and kind of spiky, something softer. You can see the mixture of textures that are going to keep the area interesting even when the plant isn't in bloom. And then finally, when I would present this to a client, I would go ahead and put some color on it. And I would name the plants as well. I didn't do that for this, but you can see how showing the color makes the grouping a lot more obvious. And it gives you, I try to color based on whatever plant I pick too. So they'll have an idea of where the purples are throughout the landscape and where the greens are. And you can see maybe the coral bells are purple, so they've got purple foliage all the time. Just gives them a much better idea of what to expect when plants actually get installed. So, there's the landscape. So, now that I've said that, let's talk about some other things that you can add in. Like I said before, I love to put in boulders and bird baths and pieces of art, and those can be colorful too and really add to the landscape. This was on our garden walk last year. This was the Ison Garden. This was a big blank wall. They needed some height, but they didn't have a long time to grow a plant there, so they used an arbor with some wonderful color that made a great focal point on that wall. I think you probably recognize this too. Yeah, where does your eye go? It goes right to the bed in the drawing or in the picture. And those aren't even plants, but it's an artistic element that really works and makes your eyes stop there. There aren't many plants in this, but you can see that there's nice color in front of this house. Here again, we've got garden art that really creates the focal point and draws your eye right to it. In this case, it's because of the color, and in this case, it's because of the water and the movement there and the interruption of the line of the dry streamlet there. I took this picture. This is at the I-Hotel. This is just a nice example of all of those different elements put together. You see the softness of the mulch mixed in with the rocks. We've got height, we've got color in different areas, different textures, annuals and perennials. It's a small area, but it's got a lot to look at and a lot of different seasons. This too is in the I-Hotel, and The reason I like this, there's a lot of variety and a lot of color, but I like the repetition of the color that they chose for the annuals, and then for the garden art, and then also for the sign. Draws your eye up through there and brings everything together. This is at the Savoy Municipal Building again. They do a great job. So you can see here the line that helps move you down the sidewalk. You can see the layers of color as they work together, and the repetition of the evergreen that will be there in the wintertime when everything else is gone. And in the big blank part of the wall here too, the taller cannas just really work with the design of the building as well. These are plant groupings. I know you've seen some of these together, but look at the way that the colors work and the textures work in big masses. So don't think about just individual plants, but think about massing them together just to really take advantage of what those plants look like. I know I use this as an example of maybe something that was off, but if you want to do an annual display, this has got a riot of color in a lot of different areas. In the wintertime, there's maybe not as much to look at here, but in the summertime, it's all over. This was just a home in Champaign that I liked all the combination of the different textures and materials, the stone and the rock and the mulch, and the annuals that they had here, softening the edges of the stone. But they have enough shrubs and perennials that even in the other seasons, it looks full and interesting. Here's a house, maybe sometimes you can hit or miss, and sometimes I think there's a little bit of a miss. This is a nice big house, but to me it feels very uncomfortable and very sparse. It doesn't look welcoming. I don't think that there's enough. I know it's a very angular and modern looking home, but you can do a landscape that reflects that. It's going to make a big difference in how your home feels at the curb appeal value. This one is really standard. It's very green. It's very easy to take care of. We've got lime, which we talked about being a great aspect of landscaping, but there's nothing past that. And so I would say maybe a little bit more. This is an example of maybe a design that started out good, but there was not enough maintenance, and it's just overgrown now. You can't see out of the windows. I would be scared to go trick-or-treating at this house. This home I found, this is not my style of landscaping, but for those who really like evergreen, we have a wonderful variety of different colors within evergreen, and you can create a very interesting looking design with just evergreen shrubs or majority of evergreen shrubs. Even textural differences, I think, are interesting together here. This is at Lincolnshire Country Club, and their annuals are beautiful. And they've mimicked, I love how we've got this droopy evergreen over here, and we've got the droopy annuals in the baskets, and we've got the same colors that work their way all through. I just think it's a lovely entrance. Here's a before and after. Now, I have to say that I did take these pictures just purely for my reference, and I wasn't thinking of using them as an example, so I apologize for the pile of rock. But this is just, it's a big machine shed in the country that I did for the farmer. Here's the before, but here's the after. And you can see how even just a utilitarian machine shed can be something that's really inviting and beautiful from the road. Here's another before and after. This is a big farmhouse in the country. A couple of design things to fix here. First of all, it's like flat, and then there's this enormous house, so it feels really out of scale right now. So we're going to work on that with the landscape, but also they have no way to get to their front door. So we put in a circle drive and a long kind of series of steps there. This was right after it was installed, so eventually the shrubs and the trees will grow so that the house is more in scale with its surroundings, but this was just brand new installation. I guess that's the end. We do have a series of drawings over here, but in talking about garden inspiration, I also have a bunch of books, and when I sit down, I don't try to remember all of the trees and shrubs and flowers that are at my disposal. I have a book, I have a binder with notes in it and pictures and things. It's just my inspiration book, and I flip through it. So don't think that just because you don't know the names of all of what's available that you're going to have trouble. Just put it out. Look in books. There's so many resources available, and there's some examples up here. Do you guys have any questions?
Yeah, I'd like to also invite you to come up and look at these two paintings. There were not slides of those. These were both done after I visited the Missouri Botanical Garden, and because the way they used color was just so exciting. This one in triangular shapes especially, and then they used the pathway, and then they used oval circles on either side filled with color. And what colors have they used? Analogous colors. And they work so well together. When I saw that, I thought, I gotta do a painting of that. And then this one shows you the whole scene of my sister in the grids. And notice all the patterns of how the negative spaces work so well with the color. And you can come up and you can see that a little bit better then too. So you've been a good audience. We appreciate that. Thank you.